So my name's April Dunham. I'm a partner technical architect at Microsoft. I've been here for about 3 months now. I was a former, before joining, an MVP in business apps. So I've been working with PowerApps and Power Automate probably since they came out about, 3.5 years ago now. So really looking forward to this session. I'm going to talk all about low-code Teams apps with PowerApps. So the agenda for today, I want to go over quickly, why you should consider investing in low-code development, and then specifically talk about what is PowerApps, do a lot of demos. We're going to dive into the PowerApps tool, show how you can quickly get an app up and running in just a matter of minutes, and then show how you can integrate that app within Microsoft Teams. Okay? And then, like Lucy said, I'll be stopping for questions along the way. So I believe this is the only PowerApps related session for the conference today. So if you have any burning PowerApps questions, this is your opportunity to ask those, and I'll do my best to answer. All right, so first, let's talk about why you should invest in low-code development. I mean, the long and short of it is you're missing out on a ton of opportunity if you're not at least looking at low-code dev. So some of these stats, about 65% of organizations report that there's an app development backlog. So lots of need for apps being built. And then surprisingly, there's even a lot of companies and businesses still using and relying on paper processes to manage critical business processes, which is kind of scary, honestly, but it's a big opportunity to take those paper processes and then transform them into digital processes, and then low code is really here to help you with that. And then this last stat here, a lot of organizations are realizing that low code dev is a great opportunity to accelerate their digital innovation and transformation. So they know it's there and they want to take advantage of it and realize the power of it. So specifically, some of the benefits of low code dev. First thing I want to point out before I go into the benefits, though, is this stat's pretty crazy. So, but in just 4 years, so by 2024, right, 65% of all app dev is going to be low code. So lots more people will be getting on this low code app development train here if these stats really hold true. The biggest benefit of low code dev is going to be your speed and savings, right? So it's going to cost significantly less to develop applications on a low-code platform and significantly less time. So and they estimate about 70% less application development cost and effort building something in a low-code tool versus custom deving it. So that just allows you to get more applications out there, really increase your digital transformation faster than ever. You also have increased development agility. So you can automate like processes and reduce errors across your organization really quick and efficiently with the Power Platform. And then the ROI is huge. I mean, because you can build these applications so fast and they're relatively easy to maintain, you don't have to be a developer to maintain these. The ROI is just astronomical. And so when we talk about how do you decide what the best solution is, right? And where is low code's role in that? Well, obviously, as we know, some processes probably are a good fit for like an off-the-shelf solution, a SaaS product. But the problem is, as I'm sure we've all been there always isn't like an app for that. Either, there's something really specific and there's just nothing out there that you can purchase off the shelf, or maybe it's just like what's out there is just, too expensive, or maybe it's just too big. Like I run into that a lot, especially with some smaller to mid-sized organizations. Like, yeah, there's this product that can do a CRM, but it's huge. I need like a fourth of what that can do. So why pay that price tag when I only need a fourth of the functionality right now? So in those cases, an off-the-shelf product might not be a great fit. And then of course, so if that's off-the-shelf product isn't a good fit, you might look at custom dev. And some problems are best solved still with custom app development. But the problem there lies is there's only so much app development that an organization can really invest in. There's going to be limits. I mean, you only have access to so many developers, and those developers only have so many hours in the day, and it takes significantly longer in that software development lifecycle for custom dev. So you're just going to run into some limits there. So everything else in between, where a SaaS product isn't a great fit and you just don't have the manpower to have a custom, do some custom app, or maybe it just doesn't even make sense. That's a missed opportunity, and that's where low code can come in and help solve the problem for you. So when we talk about low code, and specifically in the Microsoft space, we're talking about PowerApps for low code app development. So let's go dive into specifically what is PowerApps here. The PowerApps is the low code application development tool that Microsoft offers. And with it, you have an easy drag and drop interface where you can create native, responsive mobile and web applications that you can run either on your desktop, on your tablet, or on your phone. And within that, you have this rich UI logic. So you can have your applications, and those applications can talk to other Microsoft services like Power Automate, or the artist formerly known as Microsoft Flow, so that you can extend those applications and automate your business processes. So if you have some kind of app for kind of like we looked at in that session before, where we had an engineering change order, maybe there's an approval process that needs to go along with that, right? Well, you can natively call a workflow via Microsoft Flow through that application and have it automate your process for you. And when we talk about PowerApps, the overall service and data layer is all built upon this concept of connectors. And all a connector really is a wrapper around an API. So you can take a service, maybe it's one of the Office 365 services like SharePoint Online, and you can have a wrapper around that, so where you can do things like get all the documents in a document library, write an item out to a list, things like that, and make a connector so that every piece of the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, can connect to that via the connector and read and write data back and forth from that service. And this isn't just for those Office 365 services, though. These connectors, you can connect to all kinds of different things. It's like SaaS products like Salesforce, Twitter, even social media tools with these connector and the connector model. And when we talk about these connectors, it's not just for those cloud programs like you might think. You can also connect to your on-prem data. So there are over 325 different cloud services right now that you can connect to natively in Power Apps and Power Automate with these connectors. So you can kind of look at the screenshot there. There's things like MailChimp, Box.com, even Google if you need to connect to Google spreadsheets, and of course all the 365 services. All of those are rich native connectors where you can interact with. But then there's a thing called the on-prem data gateway. So you can install that, and that allows you to connect to data on your on-prem physical server somewhere. So that can be like a SharePoint on-prem environment, a SQL server that's on-prem, or maybe it's just a native application, whatever it might be. It's really powerful. And then you can even take it a step further. So take it up a notch here. You can create custom connectors. So if one of the 325 connectors that are out there doesn't, connect to what you need it to, maybe you have some kind of internal system that you've built. You can create a custom connector as long as you can have a developer or you have an API that you can call. You can create a custom connector to that and read and write data in Power Apps to that. And Power Apps and the Power Platform is really for everyone. So, the thing I love about it is you can literally build an app in hours rather than months or even years it might take with custom dev. And it's not just for, you think low code, so you probably think, oh, that's really for just citizen developers, right? I mean, no, that's also for your IT pros, for your pro developers as well. I mean, this platform is for anyone. Pro developers can easily extend it, like maybe building those custom connectors for it or custom components, whatever it might be. Well, it's also just faster to spin up a Power App sometime, or maybe use it as a proof of concept tool. So it's really for everyone in your organization, and it's a great tool to collaborate. So maybe you have someone on your team that's really good at laying things out, right? So maybe it's a citizen dev type person, maybe someone in marketing, they have a good eye for design, and they can lay out how they want it to look, but they're not as good maybe at the data layer, right? Well, that's where you can bring in someone in your IT team, maybe a pro dev or someone that can come in and then they can build out the data piece of it. So it's great for collaborative development in that sense as well. So some of the things that you can do with Power Apps to enable digital transformation across your organization. One is really great at just extending Office 365 and Dynamics. So if you've messed with PowerApps at all, if you come from a SharePoint space, you probably noticed in SharePoint Online that there's a little PowerApps button up there, and you can customize your SharePoint list forms with PowerApps. So this is kind of replacing that info path functionality. If any of you come from SharePoint background, where you could customize your list forms with info path, well, you can leverage the power of PowerApps to do that now instead in SharePoint Online. So it's great for that, extending the 365 platform, but it's also great for extending those legacy applications. So this is where that like custom connector model or the on-prem gateway would come in. So if you have some kind of internal system that you have, and maybe you need to add a new feature to it, and to add that feature, custom coding that, it might take a while, it might be a big effort. Well, you could just extend that with a Power App instead. Have a connector that calls to it and that does that specific function that you need to do to extend that legacy app. That's another big opportunity. You can even build end-to-end mission-critical solutions within this platform. I've seen people build solutions to manage inventory, to intake patients, all kinds of different things. You can build that with PowerApps. And then it's also a great tool for departmental solutions. When you're getting started with PowerApps, typically you'll probably start with some kind of specific departmental need that you have. So maybe marketing wants some kind of application to help them manage their branding materials, right? That's a specific departmental solution that you can easily build within PowerApps. All right, so I've talked a lot about what PowerApps can do. So I want to go into some demos now. And before I do, though, I just want to pause for a second to see if there's any questions about what I talked about there, just about what PowerApps can do and all that. And if not, I will move on to the demo. And again, don't forget to come off mic if you do have a question, so you can be entered in for more prizes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see any in the chat, but if anyone wants to come off the video, feel free.
All right. Well, I'll move on, and we'll have time at the end, too, for questions, too, if they come up. So now I want to show, how do you create a Power App, and how does that work? So Power Apps does reside within Office 365. So if you log into your Office 365 portal here, you'll probably see an option for Power Apps. So you can click on that, and that's one way to open it. Or you can just type in make.powerapps.com in your browser to get there directly. So when you go here, you'll see it's so easy to start an app. So I want to show one way, literally in 2 minutes here, we can create a usable application. So one of the easiest ways to get started is to start from data. So you'll see this option here at the top, start from data, and then it has about 4 different options. So in my case, I have a SharePoint list out here for marketing. And I want to create an application for that. So it's out there on SharePoint. So I can just select, okay, I know my data is on SharePoint and I want to start from there. So when I select that, it's going to open up Power Apps, and it's going to give me the option to choose the site where the information is on that I want to build the app for. So let's go into HR here. And maybe there's a app for a list for projects. So what I'm trying to do here is I just want an easy application that someone can pull up on their mobile phone, and if they have a new project that they need to track, they can enter that in, okay? So I can just point that here to that SharePoint list where that data is stored, and then click connect. And what this is going to do is it's going to build an entire application for me without me having to do anything pointing to that data. And as you'll see, once it loads up here, this application is going to have a screen where I can see all the items that are in this list. So it's pulling up all the items in the SharePoint list. It's going to have a screen here, if I click new, where I can add a new project. So I can add a project, I can point it to a client here, interact with it that way. And then it's going to have another screen where I can edit an existing project. So if I come in here to this one, I can see the details about it, and then I can either delete it or I can click this pencil and add whatever I need to do to change that. So literally, and that was not even a minute, that was a few seconds, right? You have a fully functional application within Power Apps here. And this will pull up, as you see, fine here on my desktop. And I can also download the Power Apps application on my mobile device or tablet and run this application on there natively. It's a really powerful tool. to quickly build an application here. And I'll just give a little bit of background here on how PowerApps is structured while we're in here. So when it created this app for us, you notice that we have 3 different what we're calling screens here. So we have this tab, that's a screens tab. And in here we have a browse, a detail, and an edit screen right now. So that's how PowerApps breaks out the different functions of your application. So you can add new screens. So if I click new screen here in the upper left-hand corner, you see that we have different screen templates that we can choose from. So you can have like a new blank screen here, or maybe you want a success message. So after someone adds a new item, you want to give them a message to let them know, hey, that item was added successfully. That's a template that we can add in here. So all I have to do is click that in, and it adds in that new screen here. So quick tip when we did that, you notice when I added that screen, it just gave it a generic screen 1. So when you're building out your applications, one of the biggest tips I can give you that's going to save you a lot of heartache when you have to start maintaining these apps is to make sure you give all of your elements in the application relevant names so that you know what they're doing. So in this case of the screen, I probably want to go and rename that so I know exactly what it is. So I can just click these dots, go to rename, and rename that success screen so I know what that is and what that's doing, so that when I have it all collapse like that, I don't have to dive into it and click on it to know what's happening within that screen. So now we have this nice success message here. So I've easily added a screen there. So in these screens, we have things called controls. So if you look up here, we have one control here that's a rectangle. So what you can do is, like how to have this nice background here, if you click on Insert, we have icons that we can utilize within PowerApps. So we're using a lot of icons in this case. So we have one, this is for a refresh button. This one's for a filter. And there's a little add icon to add a new item. And then this background here is actually a rectangle icon. So, I mean, I like to describe PowerApps, if you haven't used it before, and hopefully you're seeing it now that we're in it, is like if PowerPoint and Excel had a baby. So hopefully you're looking at the interface and you're thinking this really looks similar to like how I might organize a presentation in PowerPoint, right? I can go in and add shapes, right, like rectangles, and I can have nice backgrounds and visuals like that, and easily just lay out stuff like I would in PowerPoint. And where the Excel piece comes in is that's like, how do you do the data type stuff in here? Well, you do that with Excel-like formulas and PowerApps. So here, let's look in this, for example. So right here, this is what's called a gallery control. So let's step back for a minute and explain what that is. So in this, I'm surfacing up all the items in my SharePoint list. So I'm doing that with a particular type of control in PowerApps called this gallery. And the whole purpose of a gallery is to show a bunch of data, like a list of data from a data source. So when this app was created for us, it added in a gallery for us called Browse Gallery. And we can see that it's pointing to that projects list that we pointed it to. And if we look at this items property, this formula here should look pretty familiar if you are, ever worked in Excel or Excel guru here. Just like in Excel, you can sort your data and you can do ifs, right? And filters and all that. Well, that's all we're doing here. So there's a great site out there, I'll have to find the URL, where it shows you all the different formulas that you can use within PowerApps, but they're very similar to Excel. So all I'm doing here is I want to sort this projects list by the title, and I want to sort ascending or descending here. And then I also want to filter it. So within that sort, I'm filtering it, and I want to filter it based off of what we have here in this search. So I want to filter where title starts with whatever I have in this search box, okay? So as you can see, if I play this app here, I can start typing something like test, and that's going to automatically filter the list of items for me to items with title that starts with test, okay? And it's real time doing that as I type it. So if I delete some stuff and just have a T in there, it's going to filter out with anything that starts with a T. So the other thing it was doing some sorting. And that sorting is done with this icon. So you see we have this sort kind of looking icon here. So if I click that, you notice that it's changing the order of the items from descending, so starting with V and lower, to ascending when I click that. So you can do things like on click of something, perform an action, right? That's what we're doing here. So if I click on this little sort button, you'll see that, first of all, one thing to point out, everything that you add here in PowerApps has a set of properties that you can define. So if I click on that sort button, you'll see in the upper left-hand corner here that I have what's called the properties panel. And these are all the things that I can do to customize this particular button. So I can do things like change the color. If I wanted to change the color, I can select this color option. You can see that it has some RGBA code here and it's white. I could change that to gray if I wanted to. And select that from there. And then now that icon is gray instead of white, right? So it's just as easy as that to change something like that. But if we want to do something like, when I click this button, do something like perform an action, where there's a property on all of your different icons or controls you add called onSelect. So if we select that onSelect here, we can perform an action when that's clicked. And what we're doing here is we're using a variable. So kind of similar to like, if you come from a coding background, variables will definitely make sense. But all it is a way to store some kind of data in the application itself so that you can use it somewhere else. And there's two types of variables that you can use within PowerApps. There's a global variable and there's a context variable. Global variable means if I add and set data and store it within a global variable, I can use that anywhere throughout my application. And global variables are assigned using a command or a function called set. A great use case for using a global variable is storing the context information about the current logged in user in your application so that you can use it in multiple screens. So let's take a step back and look at that. Here, you notice we have these 4 screens right now, but you see above all those screens, there's this option for app. If you click on that, you'll see that in this properties window, it says on start. Well, this is basically code or formulas that you can run when your application is initially loaded. So what I can do here is I can just type in set in the formula bar to initiate a new global variable. And I can call it, so I just got to give it, and you notice when I do this, what I love about PowerApps is it has this built-in like IntelliSense, right? So it's telling me exactly what it expects me to do. So it's wanting me to give the variable a name. So I'm going to call the variable itself current user, because that's the information I'm storing within it. And then it wants me to put in a comma. And now what is the value that you want to store within that? So in PowerApps, if I want to store the current user, there's a short code where you can just type in user. And notice when I type in user, below here, it's actually showing me options. So that's this formula here that I want, this function. And I can see it expects like an open and a close parenthesis. And then I can just close that. So what I've just did is I've set who the current user is to a global variable called current user. So now I can use this anywhere within my application. I can go into the detail screen, for example, and I can add in a label, and I can call that. So I can set this label's value. So again, like I said, everything in PowerApps has its own set of properties you can define. So in this case, I want to set what text should show. So I can go into the text property and enter in the text, and I can enter it into current user, and I want to get their full name. So when I do that, it's using that global variable, and I'm getting my username. Okay. So that's a global one. But now if we go back to this browse screen, on this button where we were just a minute ago, you'll see that it's not using set, it's using update context. Well, that's a context variable. So this variable here can only be used in reference within the current screen I'm on. So right now, I'm here on this browse screen, so I can only use this variable within the screen, and that's done using this update context command. You'll see that it's a little bit different than the set. I'm wrapping it in addition to the parentheses, I'm wrapping it in curly braces. and I'm separating out my value, my name of my context variable with, and then my value with a semicolon instead of a comma, okay? So just a little bit of syntax to be aware of when you're using these variables. Right? And so what this is doing for this screen, so we have our gallery and it shows the items. Well, when I click this, it's setting this variable called sort ascending to the opposite. So you can, to the opposite of whatever it is. So if I click it once and it was true, and I click it again, it's going to say, okay, well, that was true now, so now it needs to be false. So it's just toggling that. And then we're just using that variable here in our filter or items function for this gallery. So we're saying if that variable is descending, then set it descending, and if it's false, set it to ascending. So we're just toggling it there. Okay, so I went over some general basics there. Any questions? I see something. I don't know if there was a question in the chat. Let's see.
Still no.
Oh, okay, it's just a comment.
Just, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is one way that I wanted to show you how you can create an app in PowerApps. And like we said, it just took a matter of minutes to do. And you've got a general feel of some basics. But now I want to show you a different way. So first, though, I want to save this application. So another thing to point out, if you're new to PowerApps, I went in and I said create a Power App for my data, but right now this isn't actually saved anywhere. So you got to make sure that you make a copy of it and save it first before you navigate away from it. So to save an app, you'll go into the File tab here, and then you'll need to first give it a name. So it's just going to give it a generic name of app. So I'm going to call this Project Management. And just something to point out, when you're saving these applications, you can define what icon and logo shows, like when the list of apps, when you have this. So I could change like the background color, for example, here. It's like brown, and then I can look at icons or upload a custom icon and set that here. Okay. And then once we have the name and the icon, we can just click save and then save one more time, because you can either save an app in the cloud, or you can save a local copy to your computer if you need to, if you're not ready to publish it. But we can save that there. So now I have a working copy of that I can access. But right now, only I have access to this. So I'll show you in a minute how to share that. But now we have this saved, so I can safely exit out of it, and I know that it's there if I need to get back into it later. All right, so we just looked at Start from Data and how you can quickly create an app that way. But the other way I want to show you is utilizing templates. And before I go into the templates, quick briefer here. You'll see below Start from Data that we have this option for Make Your Own App, and you'll see three options. You see Canvas App, Model Driven App, and Portal from Blank. So there are basically three different types of Power Apps that you can create. The one that we just looked at was a Canvas app. So what that means is really, as what the name implies, you literally have a blank canvas that you can put whatever you want into, connect to any data source you want, and completely customize it from scratch, from that blank canvas. The other type of app that you may have heard of is a model-driven app. That's a completely separate type of app, which data is stored in the Common Data Service, and it's a data-first approach. So with a model-driven app, you tell it, okay, I need to connect to this accounts entity within, CDS Dynamics, and it will build out the application for you. So while that's cool and it will, build out a nice responsive app for you based on your data, you do have limited functionality there. So you can't, there's not as much customization as you would have in a Canvas application. And then the third one is relatively new, and that's a portal application. So PowerApps portals were released a few months ago, and it's a way to create like a public-facing type application for PowerApps. So when we look at PowerApps, traditionally it's meant to be used within your organization. So that application, this project management app that we just built, I can share that easily with anyone inside our current Office 365 tenant here, no problem. But if I wanted to share it with, like, maybe we had a partner that we work with closely, right? And then their guest, I would, it's not as easy to share applications with like guest users. You can do things like Azure AD, and configure guest access and all that, but it's not really meant or intended to be some kind of application that you can go put out on, the Google or Apple App Store and consume that way. Like, it's not really a consumer application. It's more like a business app. Whereas a portal can be. It can be like a public-facing URL that someone hits and they can interact with your app that way. So just level set and then understand the 3 different types of apps there. I'm focusing today all on Canvas apps because that's the most flexibility and the most used. All right, so now that we have a good base understanding of that, let's look at those templates. So one of the things I love about PowerApps is, well, we just showed how easy you can start from data and create an app, but also there's all kinds of templates that you can create and use. So if we look here, we have all these templates, and we can literally just click a button and have any of these apps up and running. One of the ones that I'll point out that if you're new to PowerApps that you should definitely check out is this PowerApps training template. This template is literally a template that will walk you through how do you use PowerApps. So it'll show you guidelines like, hey, perform these steps, and this is how you change the color of a box and all that. So you can go and add this application, open it up in edit mode, and walk yourself through how you do different things within PowerApps. So definitely check this out if you're just getting started. But in my case, I want to build an actual business solution. And one of the things that I want to do is in my Teams channel, I really want to have some kind of mechanism where I can give my colleagues shout outs. So since we're all working remote these days, and you don't have that in-person interaction, how can we increase company morale and interactivity and all that? Well, like some kind of like shout out app where I can give someone praise for doing something would be great to have within Teams. Well, there's a PowerApps template for that. So I can click on this Shoutouts application, and I can just say, give it a name. So we'll just call it Shoutouts here. And I can create that, and this will create a fully functional application for me based off of this template in just a matter of minutes here. And so next, what I'm going to show is once we get this app up and running here, I'll show how we can integrate this in within Teams. And there's all kinds of great templates. And another one that I want to point out, so while that's running, or I might just come back to it since it's almost done, but hopefully some of you have heard of the Crisis Communication App template that we just released a week or 2 ago. So that whole app is intended to help in this crazy situation we're in with coronavirus and all that. It's to help, you say like keep track of like, okay, I'm sick, I'm out of office, I'm working from home and all of that, and to get news about what's happening. So I'll show that app quickly here in a minute. All right, so I selected that template though, back on this shout out scenario. And you see that it created the app for me, and it's pretty cool. So I can kind of play it right now and see what it does. So it has this intro screen where it's walking you through what does this app do? What can I do with this application? So I can kind of click next through it. It's nice, it's interactive. And then I can see, okay, looks like I have received feedback here. So I can see there's my profile. I can see shout outs to me and shout outs from me. So I haven't sent any shout outs yet. And then I can see my top context here. So if I click this plus button here, I can look at who I want to give a shout out to. So maybe Joni here. And it takes me to this nice screen where I can select, okay, what type of shout out are you wanting to give? So maybe I want to thank Joni because she was really helpful. So I can select that type, click next, and then put in a personal message. Okay. You can upload a photo with this app, right? So I'm just going to click next here. I'm going to review my shout out. And this app is even sending the shout out via email. So this is a great thing about these templates. So even if this didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do here, like maybe I don't want it to send an email, I want it to like send a chat message to her in Teams instead, I can easily customize that. All right, so this app looks great, and it does exactly what I wanted it to do. I didn't have to really do anything here. So I'm just going to make sure this is saved. Okay, so I'm going to save this Shoutouts app here because I want to now integrate this app within my team. All right, now before I integrate this app in Teams though, I need to make sure that everyone in my organization that's going to be in the team that I'm embedding this in has access to this app, because right now I'm the only one that can see and use this application. So right here, since I'm already in the app, you'll see this share button. So this is where I can go and define the permissions for my Power App. So I can see right now, I'm the only one that has access, and I'm the owner, but I can type in here either individual names or email addresses, or I can use the everyone shortcut, and that will give everyone access to use the application, okay? Right now, you can't send this to like an Office 365 group. It can only be security trimmed, security group. So keep that in mind when you're sharing it, but I think that functionality should be coming. But I really want everyone in my organization to have this. So I'm just going to use the everyone shortcut. And when I do that, you see that it's going to default to just giving that user or that group user access, meaning they can open the app in Teams and interact with it, but they can't do what I just did and go into edit mode and make any changes to the app itself, okay? If I wanted them to be able to make changes to the app itself, I would click this checkbox to make them a co-owner, okay? But I just want them to be users. And notice at the bottom too, so similar to when you're sharing something in SharePoint, it's going to want to default to sending an email invitation. So if you don't want to send an email invitation blast to everyone, just uncheck that box there. And then the other thing to point out is it's going to give your users permissions to these connectors. So we talked about earlier that PowerApps uses this connector model. So the connectors that this is using is this Office 365 users connection and Outlook to send an email. Okay. So I'm just going to share that out. So now I have my app, it's published. I know that everyone has access to it. So I'm good to go. Well, now what I want to do is I need to add this to Teams. Now, there's a few ways that I can add it to Teams, right? And first, let's take a step back and talk like, why would I want to add this in Teams? Well, Teams is where everyone these days is living in, right? So, I mean, it just makes sense to have your applications reside within there. So if I wanted to add this to Teams, one way that I could do it, I could go into my Teams here and I could go into a specific channel. So maybe the HR channel here, and I could just add that as a tab. So I could click that plus button here in this channel. I can go to PowerApps, and then I can find the application here. So it should be Shoutout. There we go. And then I can click Save. And that will embed this PowerApp here within the HR general channel as a tab. So that's probably the easiest way to do that, but it's not the most intuitive in my case, because I want everyone to have access to this and not just people in this HR general channel. Ideally, I'd want this app to be pinned here on the left rail. So it's like, it feels like a true native Teams application, right? Well, we can do that easily within PowerApps now. So back here on the screen where I was sharing the application, you might notice in the ribbon here, there's an option for Add to Teams. So all I have to do is click that. And what this is going to do, it's going to verify that, and I can click download. So this will download a zip file for me. And it's going to package up. So if you built a team app before, you know you have to have this manifest file and like identify a logo and all that, and you have to upload the manifest to Teams and all that. Well, this is bypassing all that for you and doing all that hard work of creating that manifest file. So we have a zip file now, right? Now all I have to do is go into my Teams channel, Teams environment here, and we'll see an option here for apps. So now I can say upload a custom app. And when we upload, we can either upload an app just for me or my teams, or we can upload an app for everyone in the company. So if I click upload for, and that will have the name of your tenant here, this will make sure that everyone can use this application. So all I have to do is point that to the zip file that PowerApps just produced for me here and click open. And when I do, it's going to add that here as an app in my Teams tenant. Okay. And then so now if I click on that application, now that that's physically uploaded, I can just click add. And now you see what happened here on the left-hand side. There's my Shoutouts application embedded in the left rail for everyone. Now they can interact with it. So I can go through just like I did in PowerApps itself when I was in the preview mode here, and I can submit another shout out. So maybe I want to shout out Bob here. want to doing that presentation. Right, click next, send, and I'm completely using this application natively within Teams itself and not the Power Apps, and I can see that it updated that. I can see that I just gave Bob in this history here a shout out, and it really helps increase the community, the feeling of community and stuff within my organization. And I was able to do that in a matter of minutes with the power of Power Apps embedded within Teams. So hopefully you see the power. It's pretty cool. So the other thing, I believe Ronna put a link in the chat, so thank you for that. I talked about that crisis app. So before I wrap the questions here, I really want to go over that because in these crazy times, it's a really great Power App to have. So if I open this up here, this is a template that we provide for free. So if you go to that link here, we have setup instructions and a link to download it. And this is what it looks like. So what it's going to do is it's going to recognize you. So one of the big things you can do is share a status. So if your offices are closing down and you need to communicate to your team that you're working from home, you can click that. If you happen to get sick and you need to let everyone know that you're going to be out of office, you can click that and choose, okay, when are you going to be out of office? Maybe for the next week or so. Submit that and it'll blast that out to your team, letting them know that you're going to be out of office. And you can choose who to share that with. So maybe I need to let Joni know because she's on my team, and Sean and Bob, and share that out with them to let them know that I'm going to be out of office, and even give, customize my out of office message directly in here, right? All within this application. And this, again, will work on my desktop or my mobile device. So if I'm sick in bed and need to do this, I can just pull it up on my phone. And then we can have company news. So it's a great way where you can, if you need to communicate that you need to work from home, you can have that out here. You can connect it to an RSS feed and show news and updates about coronavirus. You can offer tips for your employees about what they need to do to stay safe. FAQs here, links, important links here, like the virus tracker, emergency contacts, and all that. So it's a really powerful application, and this would be a great use case for embedding this application within Teams so that your team can go there and have this crisis communication app. All right. And then I wanted to leave you, I'm going to open up for questions here, but I just wanted to point you to some resources. So we talked about Teams and how to integrate that in here, and the Teams opportunity. So one thing I'll point out, and you saw how quickly it was to embed that Power App in Teams. So when you think about it, really every Power App you build is a Teams app because it's just that easy to put it within Teams. We talked about the different ways that you can upload it, did the demo. All right, so if you want to learn more about Power Apps, there's some great step-by-step documentation on the Microsoft Learn site, so definitely check that out. And then if you want to get started, there's a free trial of Power Apps that you can use. So if you don't have this in your organization, you can set up there's a Power Apps community plan that you can have, and you can get started playing with Power Apps and taking advantage of all of the functionality there. And then there's things, app in a day. So we offer, and some of our partners offer, like I'm not sure if Synergy does or not, but definitely ask if they do, but they can have a Power Apps app in a day. And you can just walk through building an app from scratch in that. And then we have a Center of Excellence kit that you can download. And so that's for really managing the application lifecycle and governance of your Power Apps. And finally, join the community. So as you're learning Power Apps, there's going to be questions. You might get stuck on something. Plug into some of your local user groups and join the Power Users community there, because that's a great place where people are posting how-to videos, and you can ask questions, and people are really responsive there. So definitely check that out. All right, so now, good timing there. I have time for questions, so hopefully if we have any, if not.
Yeah, Chapter Camp just posted a question. I don't know if you want to share your video.
Hi, this is John Leonard. Yeah,
Hi,
I just had the question of, I'm so tired of people not updating their contact info. If I was king of the world, I'd say you enter your photo and your correct mobile phone or you're fired, so I can get a hold of you at times like this. How's your experience with getting people to do that? I'm so tired of grayed out photo icons with email only when I'm trying to raise a
Yeah.
team member in a tight situation.
Yeah, I mean, the struggle is real there for sure. I've thought of creative ways to do that. So kind of like you can gamify it. So you can allow them to update that like within a Power App and have it gamified and like let them get points if they update their information. And like maybe even give away some simple prize, like a random drawing or something for updating it. So that's one creative way I've got around it. And then also if they don't, like if you're using this within Power Apps itself, right, and you're pulling in like their profile picture, and they don't have a profile picture, you can like have it default to something funny, like, I don't know, a picture of a cat or something. And then maybe if they get tired of the picture of the cat, they'll want to update their profile. But yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do. But I found if you can try to gamify it in some way and then give them some kind of incentive to update it, it helps. Good question.
Any other questions out there you want to ask April? All right. Well, thank you so much, April. I personally learned a lot. This was a great session, and we really appreciate you coming and doing this. Take your time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.